It's not often that you stumble across an unexplored lithium tenement in the Lithium Triangle. It's not often that you find a company that strikes 200 milligrams per litre of lithium in their first batch of drill holes either. It's also not often that you find a company with a management team that has overseen several projects through from exploration right up to production. Yet that's exactly the kind of company we find ourselves with today. I'm Shay Russell, and welcome back to Cocktails and Commodities, the resource podcast where macro analysis meets mining insights. Tap the like button so you always know when exciting exploration opportunities pop up, but please remember, all information in this podcast is general in nature and not financial advice. Today, I'm chatting with two people from Greenwing Resources. This is Peter Wright, the Executive Director, and Rick Anthon, the Chairman. And we're here to talk about their exciting lithium project, San Jorge, out in Argentina. Let's get on with it. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here in the studio today.
Pleasure having us.
Now, it's always exciting when I get to record in person instead of virtually. Peter, you and I last met at IMARC last year where we talked about an exciting graphite project that Greenwing has on their books. Yep. But today we want to have a different chat. I want to talk about lithium, which is a little odd given the lithium price has come off the boil, so to speak. Now, first things first, I'm actually going to start with you, Rick. Now, in Australia, we've heard a lot about hard rock lithium and how great the Pilbara is for the sources of hard rock lithium. But the San Jorge project that you guys have out in Argentina is brine. What is the difference between hard rock and brine for all the non-geologists out there listening?
Yeah, I think you need to think about them as the processing path. So if you look at the hard rock projects, what they actually produce, they produce an input into the lithium supply chain, which is their lithium concentrate. So they're digging up their dirt, hopefully around the 1% mark. They're concentrating it, so they're coming up with a 6% concentrate, and then they're putting it on a ship to China. That's the only place it goes to at the moment. In China, it then goes through a highly energy intensive refining process to ultimately, which includes heating it up to an enormous temperature and running a lot of acid through it, and ultimately through the end of that process you will produce lithium carbonate or lithium hydroxide. So it's a little bit like the iron ore producers. Twiggy Forrest, he doesn't make steel. He's not in the steel game.
That is a good point, yes.
He is in the iron ore game. The brines are different propositions. So the brine producers, the large ones in South America, like Albemarle and SQM, and what is now Arcadium, they start with the brine. The brine is actually refined, is refined and processed at site, and the end product, be it a carbonate or usually a carbonate, because the hydroxide is then taken off and processed elsewhere. But there is a carbonate product produced, which can be sold as a finished product, and it's generally lower on the cost curve to produce those brine-based products.
So brine's cheaper to produce?
In a very rough sense. There's the people will argue about that, but yeah, it is cheaper to produce and it is cleaner.
Oh, that's right, because to produce brine, it uses basically solar energy. It uses energy from the sun.
About the first 30% of your process is solar energy.
Is it much more time consuming?
Concentrated. Yes, absolutely, and that's the other trade-off is that it can take to set up a brine project from when you first started filling your ponds to when you first started producing a finished product could be 18 months.
Now, tell me, I would like you to indulge the geology nerd in me. Your project, San Jorge, rests inside the Andes as part of the Lithium Triangle, which is the border, which is a triangle that, for everybody listening, that shares an area with Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia. Your project's located in Argentina. Tell me, how are these brines even formed out there?
I think you need to think about the when you talk about Argentina, you're at, and Chile and Bolivia, you're at 4,000 metres, so you're high and you're very, very dry. These are very, very low rainfall areas, and this is where you produce salt flats. So you've got the water and the snow runoff, but you just happen to have the rocks there, which will leach out the lithium. Instead of that just being washed off, they will actually aggregate within these salt deposits, and so that's what is being produced in or being exploited across the whole of the lithium triangle.
Now, before we move on, I want to talk about why lithium in general. Because, I said earlier, lithium's come off the boil, and for the last couple of years, it has been the hot commodity to invest in, not just on the ASX, but in the North American markets as well. Why would you guys want to take on that sort of commodity risk in a commodity that has, been really hyped up and now it's sort of flattened out?
Yeah.
Look, I think that Rick and I have, especially Rick, been involved and exposed to lithium for a very long time. I have, in my investing career, always sought to find exposure to enduring supply and demand dislocations and to be on the right side of them. And lithium has always struck Rick and I as exhibiting those characteristics. We're not selling lithium right now. The long-term forecast between supply and demand for lithium is still extremely compelling. Yes, it's had a pullback. All commodity prices that are flavour of the month or flavour of the decade have these pullbacks. You get a lot of people in both the stock and the commodity level who have no fundamental view on the company or the commodity other than it's lithium, it's going up. And when you get a temporary demand-supply balance like we have had last year and perhaps this year, a lot of that speculative money, both in stocks and in the commodity, ceases to exist, and you get what we had last year, which was 80% correction in hydroxide, spodumene, and carbonate price.
You also need to put it in a slightly bigger perspective, because I've sort of had the misfortune to be involved in the lithium industry since 2006.
It's a long time.
It's a long time.
Nearly 20 years.
Nearly 20 years. So I think, from a sense, probably longer than most, virtually anybody else going around. Why lithium? Lithium is part of a structural economic change, which is because it is electrification. That's what drives it. So it's not whilst it has cyclical elements to demand and supply, as happens when you're in a free market. Structurally, you have a fundamental decarbonisation change. Now that's not going anywhere. So you get. Has there been a bit of a pullback? With events like Ukraine and these sorts of things, when people say, well, we still need coal. Of course, you still need coal. Of course, you still need gas. But fundamentally, that decarbonisation and electrification process is ongoing, and it's not just the motor vehicle manufacturers. It's going to be storage. It's going to be the grid. So why lithium? Well, that's a fundamental driver, because there is no other meaningful technology for electrification of the fleet outside of lithium batteries. There's nothing on the horizon that's going to get close to changing that. So yes, you're going to get these ups and downs in the market. We saw that in 2019. We saw that in 2011. We saw that in 2007. So, but the theme and the structural change has just got stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's not going away.
I like to put the argument forward that it takes millions of years for these rocks to form. Surely a couple of years to ride out the depressed part of the cycle isn't going to hurt.
Well, I think but I think that comes into you don't see structural changes in your economy happening in the blink of an eye.
No.
And predicting how fast electrification takes up, predicting the rate of EV penetration, predicting the rate of the growth of storage is it's not quite darts at a dartboard, but it's difficult because it's a very complex thing to do. But take a look back. Is it going down that path, and is it continuing to go down that path? Yes, it is.
Well, arguably, some investors are being impatient because we only know a world where the internal combustion engine exists. We weren't there the first 30 or 40 years it took to see mass adoption, and that's what Greenwing Resources is moving into.
Yeah, except it's happening a lot quicker than 30 or 40 years.
It certainly is.
Even these things. I remember when I started in financial markets, and they were talking about we're going to have these handheld devices, and everything you could ever conceivably need will be on these things. Not long out of Dubbo. I think it's the greatest rubbish I'd ever heard. And here we are. You can track flights, anything.
I completely agree with you. I remember a phone that had a blue screen, and I thought that was the epitome of the highest technology, and I'll never advance past this. That phone was also more unbreakable than anything I use today. All right, so that's the case for lithium. But what takes you out to, I might throw over to you, Peter,
Sure,
what took you out to Argentina to build this lithium project? Like what was attractive about San Jorge itself?
Oh, well, look, to go back a couple of years, so we had manufactured, or we brought graph Mata online successfully. COVID came along. We weren't able to get people in or out of the country, certainly weren't able to mine or export concentrates.
COVID, yeah.
And, so mostly Rick's idea. I take half the credit, but Rick was of the view, and I agreed, that we need to diversify jurisdictionally and commodity risk as well, but within the same thematic, if that makes sort of sense.
So you increased your commodity risk during COVID.
Well, sort of. Rick, given his nearly 20 years with Orocobra and his knowledge of projects available within Argentina, had come across this project and suggested it might be of value. We got it at a point where lithium was on one of several ebbs, as compared to where it was post and now where it is now. So we made the decision that we liked, the broad thematic, hence why we're in the graphite. Here came a lithium project, very much liked it, as opposed to Miller's Reward in Madagascar. Was very straightforward to bring it to an exploration stage and progress that exploration, and that was the decision that we made, and here we are, hopefully months away from an initial mineral resource estimate.
And we knew, I understood Argentina well, but we knew the vendors of the project, but we also knew that we could put, like anything, we could put a team together, which we have done, and we knew the people that would be working for us. So it sort of planets aligned a bit when you had a project in Argentina. I had the experience in Argentina. We knew the people in Argentina. It was compelling proposition to invest in the San Jorge project.
So this is about the problem in every podcast where I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let's talk about that and stuff my schedule. You just talked about having a local team in Argentina and the skill set there. How important is it to have, obviously, the support of the local workforce where you're operating, and obviously the local knowledge, like the intellectual capital out there?
It's important anywhere, and I think as Peter would attest, when we were operating in Madagascar, we were successful in building up a really good relationship with the community there, as well as building up a team. Now that project suffered obviously during COVID and had the issues of being a little bit under scale, but the principles of actually being able to have the relationship with the community and build the team and have the governmental relationship with that, they're transportable, and that applies wherever you're working. So it's not just a particularly Argentinian thing, but it's very handy in Argentina, given language and culture, to have local people who you've worked with before, who you can depend on.
Yeah, look, we have an exceptional in-country manager over there. He spent a lot of time with Orocobra, highly fluent in English, obviously completely fluent in Spanish, and the doors he's been able to open for us, at ambassador levels, ministerial level, government level, for us has been fantastic. He's invaluable to us. We were lucky enough, again, via Rick's association with Orocobra, to get Murray Brooker to have oversight of the program, which we're very happy with. And several of the geologists there at site had previously worked for Orocobra. So, like Madagascar, where we have an outstanding team, we still have all those key people in place. We've assembled a very good team in Argentina as well, and not just the drilling, but the permitting, local relations, provincial government, and federal government. We're in pretty good shape over there, and it wouldn't be possible without those people.
I really like the line of the words I'm hearing come out from your mouth, and I guess this throws to a little bit of your experience as well. So, former life as an equities analyst, I like to see what line of sight management has on getting something to production. You're not just out there exploring; you've got views on how you can get this. If build a maiden resource out and get this to production. You're not just here to kick some rocks and hope for the best. You know the direction you're taking, don't you?
Absolutely, and whilst we might have lost sight of it at present with equity prices, there's two markets for us, right? There's the asset market and there's the equity market. Now, we have a major investor who potentially in 3 or 4 years' time needs to consume a lot of lithium. And 3 or 4 years' time out from here, where that lithium comes from is very uncertain. There is still a massive gap between supply and demand as we move out 2027, 2028 and beyond. So,
and interestingly enough, one of the effects of these sorts of cycle swings is that demand will get big, that gap will get bigger, because you will see projects that either get delayed, and you've seen that in some of the recent press about some of the projects in Australia. The projects will get pulled, or they'll get shuttered, or they'll get delayed. Now, that all has a knock-on effect.
Yep.
And every company, large and small, will start thinking, "Oh, this is all a bit hard. We're going to slow down." So, but as I said, what's not slowing down is the demand on the other side of the equation.
Now, you've got some holes in the ground. I believe you did your first maiden drilling program. You started last year.
Yep.
You had 3 very promising results,
Yes.
and then you sent another 3, or you drilled another 3 holes on the.
We're in the process.
Of drilling those ones. Now, let's talk about some of the results that came out, because initially when I first went through the results, I noticed that it was showing 200 milligrams, milligrams of lithium per litre,
Yes.
and the market's come to expect a little higher. So why are these, where are these results coming from, and what is it telling us about the deposit?
Well, look, for a broader context, and pre-NEO's investment, the initial plan was to drill on the edges of the salar.
Mm-hmm.
So the salar is the most obvious place to go and drill first, but wanted to establish what we thought were the governing parameters of the resource. So we haven't actually drilled the salar yet.
That's very
so
promising.
Where we're drilling, the surface samples were sort of 70 to 90 tops milligrams per litre of lithium. So that's correlating to 200 up to 230 milligrams per litre as we drill off salar down to varying depths, which is encouraging. This year, when we move to the middle of the salar, which we're in the process of building roads to get out there, we're starting at 200 milligrams a litre with surface samples up to 285 milligrams per litre at surface. So we can't guarantee, but we do strongly expect that the grades will go up. But, it's the vagaries of exploration. We're quite happy with hole 4 at the moment. We'll be releasing specifics of that over the next period, but pleased with, and we've gone to the ASX 4 this year. We reported a depth of 306 metres a few weeks ago. We've just said that we're finishing that hole up now. They're moving to 5 and 6. But, and there's potassium there as well now, which is encouraging. But this year, we're going to start where the highest grades are in the project. But Murray, who is a gifted geologist and highly experienced, has always had a view that there is the potential for significant resource addition out to the west of the salar. So when you visit the salar, it's abutted on the east by mountains, so it cuts off pretty readily there. To the west, it extends 4 kilometres off salar, and it's not uncommon. There are several deposits in the lithium triangle.
Yeah, like Galan's done a great job of
which are excellent resources, just like Galan's.
So that's actually extremely encouraging what you're
it
talking
is.
about. If these are results coming from the edge of what you thought might be the boundary, and it's still showing that sort of grade, that's actually not disappointing at all. That's quite tantalising then, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Now, this is the first time this salar has been drilled,
Correct.
isn't it?
Yep.
So nobody actually, we've got a very good geologist on board. Well, not we. I mean, I'd
Several.
like to be part of a team, but you've got a really good geologist on
Yeah,
board.
we've got a good team there. But no, it was a virgin resource, so it hadn't been mapped, hadn't had geophysics over it. It had been tied up with with a local, the local who we ended up doing the transaction with, and one of the real positives about it is we have a large acreage there, and you'll see a lot of, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, you would see a lot of smaller plays that have been promoted heavily, both on the ASX and also in Canada, and they would have a piece of this or a piece of that, and you looked at that and said, well, that's interesting, but is there really scope there to build a project? And the answer is probably not. If you've got 38,000 hectares, you have control of the whole salar, and you have all the area around the edge of the salar, which if you build a project, you will need that for infrastructure. So that's one of the things that excited us about it when we looked at it.
How does a site like this go hidden for so long then? As you said, it's virgin ground. We've got no drill holes in there until Greenwing came along. How does this stay hidden?
Well, it was probably have to ask our vendor as to why he didn't. There were a couple of putative deals done on it, but go back and have a look at that cyclical thing. It didn't get taken out in the big run up in 2019, and then everything went quiet, and that was about when we came along. So.
Oh, that is a fantastic COVID win for you guys.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move into what can investors expect next, because we know everybody loves a bit of news flow.
Yes.
So you've got results upcoming for Hole 4, I believe.
Hole 4, porosity results were indications for holes 1, 2 and 3. The porosity is key.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't get the lithium out, may as well be on Mars. We're looking forward to, we'll be tabling results to that end over the next little while. It could be up to a fortnight.
Mm-hmm.
Hole 5 and hole 6 to be drilled. Definitive information on hole 4 and its conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Mineral resource, initial technical data from interacting with direct lithium extraction companies. There's a lot there. What good it does us in this market, I'm not sure. But
operate by stealth then. I think that's a great way. So what I'm hearing is basically you know exactly where you're going. You've got your plan well mapped out, and it's a case of the market can go do what it wants to do. The company's just going to get on with what needs to be done in order to bring this project to life.
That's right.
Now, before we wrap up today, I have 2 questions for both of you. I'm going to start with you first, Peter, and then I'm going to move to Rick. Peter, what do you think is the best the best kept secret about the San Jorge project?
That's a good question.
Bearing in mind we have disclosure obligations
I
to
know.
the ASX.
Oh, yes. No.
Just don't forget about those.
Well, look, I think there's a lot of upside over the next 12 months going out in the middle of the salar. I think it's very exciting, hole 4, and the implications that it may or may not have for extending off to the west. And as much as anything, having been there and spent some time both in Australia and over there with our team, we're a really fantastic team over there, highly talented individuals who we're very lucky to have. That's a big secret or an unknown fact. Just the quality of the team that we have
underappreciated.
Yes,
that we have over there, and the caliber of people that we have over there, and their increasing excitement about what's unfolding over there. Marcelo Sanchez, who's our commercial manager, said to me, "Look, who was heavily involved in Orocobre, he said this reminds me a lot of Orocobre. It's a new project, and you already have an automotive major aligned with you, and I want to be involved."
And it means when you have a problem, like this is a matter of public record, how we changed drillers after sort of only getting halfway through the first hole, but when you've got people like we've got over there, those problems are overcome. That problem was overcome actually quite easily, and we kind of got to a very good solution. And that's a very good reflection on the team we have there.
It is true, and mining's a moving beast,
Yeah,
and it's great that you've got a team that could spy that it wasn't working and was able to be nimble about this and adapt and overcome to the circumstances. So I think that should be commended. I don't see that as a drawback at all. I see that as a team who's got their stuff together and they know what they're looking for and how they want to operate. Rick, one question I have for you before we wrap up today is, now you previously have an extensive track record of working with Allchem.
Yes.
What would make you come to a smaller project like Greenwing Resources?
Well, I mean, I in a former life as a lawyer, I actually did the IPO for Orocobre in 2007, which was a 20. So it was a 25.
The year I started out in the market.
So it was a 25 cent IPO, and it traded, I think, in the GFC down to 13 cents. And it is a stock that has been as high before we ran into the current ructions. It's been as high as $16. It's still $8 or $8.50 or thereabouts, but that's a lot of wealth creation.
Yes.
And it was a privilege. It was really exciting to be working for externally as an external consultant, but then for the last 8 years working hands-on in particularly in the corporate development side and working with our Japanese partners. That was just a really exciting thing to do. But that's sort of having seen that, and that it's now merged with Arcadium, and it's now a big company, and it's now being run out of the States. So that's sort of a chapter, which is, but the opportunity to, which I think San Jorge and Greenwing presents, is to add significant value to where we are in share price appreciation. Now, it's not the lesson took. Remember, that's from 2006 to 2020. It doesn't happen overnight.
No.
But what it did, if you've got the right project, if you've got scale, you've got scale, and you've got people, and you've got the commodity, the opportunity for significant wealth creation, I believe, is there in Greenwing.
It's also about understanding, especially from an investor point of view. There's trading and then there's investing, and these are two very different things. And you want to be thinking of especially commodity investments, as a multi-year investment at a minimum, because markets take time, or getting these things out of the ground take time. Now, gentlemen, we are nearly out of time for today, but I do have one question for both of you before we leave. Pete, you've already answered this, but I'm going to ask you again anyway. If I was to bump into you at a bar, let's say I'm in San Jorge, for example.
On San Jorge.
Yeah.
Yep.
What cocktail would I be buying you?
Probably a tequila.
I'm quite partial to a good tequila.
Yeah, the place would be.
I don't think tequila likes me, though.
The place would be in Fiambullar. I don't know you'd want to be consuming alcohol
At 4,000 metres.
4,000 metres, but
it never ends well.
in Fiambullar, given its proximity and the project's proximity to the Chilean border, maybe a pisco sour.
Oh, okay, very nice.
Which are nice. You just can't have too many of them.
Especially not at 4,000 metres.
No, pisco sour or a tequila.
Okay, I can get on board with both of those. What about you, Rick? What would be your poison of choice at 4,000 metres?
Well, this wouldn't be at 4,000 metres, but my favourite cocktail, it's often the last cocktail I drank. And last night I just had a fantastic espresso martini made with Vietnamese coffee with sweetened condensed milk in it. It was just fantastic.
So
just down the road from the tennis.
There's a Melburnium.
I'll tell you where that was.
Yeah, please. I can't believe I've never had this before. I think I should go experiment with this.
Just down in Swan Street.
I might just stick to one though. All right, gentlemen, this has been a fantastic conversation. I can assure you I will be watching with eager eyes to see how this project develops, and I'm very excited to see about your Maiden resource and what might be in store for you.
Thanks for having us, Shay.
We'll be
Alarms.
Thanks for being here. The lithium price is getting absolutely hammered at the moment, and it's taking lithium stocks with it, don't get me wrong. And it's also spooked some investors. But as Rick so rightly pointed out, his 4 lithium bull market's old now. And when this commodity price tumbles, what it actually does is it shakes out the unviable projects from the market. It's important to separate short-term price news away from mines that will take several years to still come online. Today's lithium price will look completely different 4 years from now. Of course, that brings this episode of Cocktails and Commodities to a close. Make sure you're following so you always know what stocks are making news, which commodities are moving markets, and the companies trying to get it out of the ground.